Hello, my name is Emerson, and I was born in Nicaragua, but I moved to the States a few years ago. And I have experienced change over the past several years. So I thought I'd give you a few advices about that, the things that I've learned, and it might help anybody. So if you are someone who is moving from one place to another, from one culture to another, from one country to another, if you're changing jobs, if you're changing political views, if you are changing relationships, if you are changing identity or having a crisis of some sort, there's going to be a change. And a lot of times we focus on that change, but we go through that change without realizing the process in between, which is called transition. And and that's really what I want to focus on today, about the transition aspect of change. See, there's a transition state model or stage model that has basically three different stages, and it says that there's the ending, the neutral zone, and the new beginning. And it's really important, I think, to understand where you are in these three stages in order to help yourself go through and navigate through that transition aspect that you are in, and then achieve the change that you want or that you need. Because change is not always bad. Change is actually pretty good. Not all change is good, but if you have made the decision or are realizing that you're struggling because of a change, then I think it's important to understand it. So anyways, let me walk through some of these things. In the ending stage, which is actually the first stage of transition, is basically letting go of the old, and realizing that there is a new. So in this ending stage, there's like three, I guess, three sub stages: the ending, the loosening, the letting go. The ending is basically the end of the old. You have to struggle realizing that you are not going to be, or you are not anymore where you were born, where in the relationship that you were, where you used to live, with the friends that you were with. You realize that you don't think the same way that you used to, and that brings in a lot of struggles. You're gonna find yourself dealing with fear, with denial, anger, sadness. You're gonna feel disoriented, frustrated with yourself, with the people, with the circumstances, very uncertain of yourself, of others, very vulnerable, and there's gonna be a sense of loss. You're not gonna know where you are personally, how to express yourself, how to tell people what you're feeling, what you're dealing with, and so you're gonna feel lost, and that, just understand that that's part of the beginning of the transition stage, and in order to move out of there or through it, you're gonna have to be very open, you have to be very honest, you have to be willing to communicate and go beyond the shutting in, or sometimes what we do is we isolate ourselves, and we need to be able to move ourselves out of that isolation and into a support group, a community of people that can help us with that. So in this stage, you have to learn to spell it out, what it is that you're going through. You are in a time that you're changing, in a time that you are trying to define who you are, where you are, what you want, where you want to be, where you want to go from here on. So learn to spell it out. Be okay with communicating. Open up, be honest, but also be very sympathetic with yourself, not just for pity, but understand that what you're going through is something that is delicate and it's important, and you can't just be mad at yourself and not give yourself some freedom to forgive yourself. Now, the second stage in this is going to be the neutral zone, which it's not really neutral. Is I guess more like an in between stage. And what you're looking at in this is kind of like a it's kind of like a roller coaster. You know, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and you almost feel bipolar, where uh, you decided that you are moving, you are going forward with your new identity, or the moving, or the new whatever job, with the change, and then the next minute you're like, no, no, I can't do this. I am not gonna do this. I'm gonna. That's a crazy thing. Why would I even think about doing that? Um, so neutral zone is not necessarily neutral, in the sense of that that you're not in one side or the other, but you are in between. Sometimes you are more forward, going with it. Sometimes you're more stagnant and decided to stay where you are, and other times you retrieved, you slid back to where you were before the change. In this zone, a lot of people will not be able to handle. So, like if you're going from one country to another, this is where you feel homesick enough to just fly back and not move. This is where, if you decided to change your political views, you are feeling this guilt, this resentment for choosing that. Like you're betraying your family, your community, your people. You feel so low morale and very anxious and skeptic of yourself and where you're headed or you could go. And in order to help yourself in this time, you got to forgive yourself a lot. And you have to give yourself grace. And you have to use what, in the Christian world, we use this expression, count your blessings. You have to count the blessings, not just measuring the outcome per se, but it's really the little snippets of value that are important for you. And during this time, you have to make small goals and try to become very realistic, and where you can achieve this moving forward. It kind of reminds me, I don't know about you, but I love to drive through places that no one else can, and so there are some of these places where I've been or gone through that a mile can take you several hours to get to, because of you are going through the mud, and you have to trail through it, and it just every inch you have to push real hard. So it reminds me of that. Every inch of towards change in the neutral zone is hard, and sometimes you will feel like you have moved an inch and then went back 3 steps. And that's okay. That's part of the transition stage. You have to find grace in it, and the way that you do that is by determining these short-term goals. And then the third stage in transition is the new beginning. The new beginning is when you have finally gotten to the point where you don't know how, but your efforts, your patience, and the forgiveness that you have implemented begins to pay off, and you begin to feel like things are rolling, and you're not feeling like a traitor anymore. You don't feel guilt as much. As a matter of fact, you begin to enjoy the new friendships and find the value and the good and the joy in this new place, in these new things, in this new community, and this new thoughts or way of being. And actually, it's a beautiful place because it blossoms out of just the driest aspect of your life, and then all of a sudden is a sweet view that it was worth a while getting to it. So you want to capitalize once you start feeling that you are moving forward. There's a high energy that comes with it, and you know what happens when we are in that after campfire high. You know that we will have a lot of emotions going on. So you got to be careful with not letting it hit you like a sugar high and then drop you real quick to reality where you can't handle yourself or your emotions. You want to capitalize on that energy, renew commitment, and the way that you want to do that is by finding purpose. Without purpose, without reason, all this transition stages, all of this moving forward towards change, what it's doing is just setting you up for failure. But if you can learn to capitalize on it and find that purpose for why you're doing this change, let's say that it was a relationship. You're going into this relationship and you're giving up whatever. Like in my case, I moved out of one country to another because of love, right? And I wanted that. Ultimately, it didn't matter as much that I was going to miss my parents, my siblings, my country, my language, my food. All of that was secondary now, or even third or fourth place in comparison to the purpose of I wanted to have this relationship. And whatever it costed me was worth that relationship. When you decide to make this change and you are at that point where you are committed to that change, then you find that purpose, and there's hope in it, because now you know that any problem that you go through, which you know that you will have problems, like I was having, and I still some cultural problems, racial problems, problems of belonging and community. There's all kinds of problems that you can name. I faced them when I moved from one country to another and married this girl. You have to find purpose. My purpose was being in this relationship. It was worth everything, anything and everything. So is that change worth everything for you? Because if it is, it'll make the transition valuable for you, because you're going to learn some valuable lessons out of it. You're going to become stronger. All of this will sharpen you to a person that you didn't realize that you could become, and that you would have hated to went through every one of those struggles through the change and through the transition stages. But because it was worth that purpose, that change, it was worth the change, then you're willing to put yourself through this transition, and it puts you in a vulnerable place, and it forces you into a battle that you would have never chose. Well, through those battles you become strong. Through those struggles you become a victor. It is through those battles that you win victories, and then you find hopefulness, because you realize, I was able to do this. And then not only you were able to do something, but at the end you find fruits of your labor, and you want to enjoy that. If you can't enjoy that, then change was absolutely hideous and purposeless. And then you just kind of feel like, again, at the beginning, that you have all of this fear, denial, anger, sadness. You're back to the beginning. So you need to learn to enjoy the fruit of your efforts, and you do that by finding purpose and finding hope in what you're going after in the change. And I know this is general advice. It can apply for anything and everything. And I'm doing it a little bit ambiguous because of that, because I want this to be advice for anyone and everyone. And Um, and I'm not saying this as someone who has learned it. I'm saying this as someone who is in the midst of it. I have been in this transition stage for a long time, um, maybe even more than 10, 12 years. And I find myself in the new beginning stage in most of the time. But sometimes I do feel like I'm back at the beginning where I'm at a loss, I'm in denial, and I'm distorted and disoriented, and I don't know what I want. And I know that it has a lot to do with lack of purpose and lack of hope. But when I find myself again with hopefulness, that drives me back into where I need to be with my newfound change. So I hope this advice helps you, whoever you are. Find hope. I found my hope in a wonderful community, and it was thanks to my relationship that I have with the Lord as a Christian. And wherever you are, find hope for your life. Find hope for that new change that you know it's time for you to do, for you to make. So, all right. Well, have a good day.